Today we are going to be talking about clinical trials. It's really important to understand what clinical trials are. If you think about clinical trials, they are a set of experiments done in human beings. That's why they're called clinical trials. It sounds scary, I know, but it's not that scary. Clinical trials are done mostly to test the efficacy, which means how effective a drug is, and the safety of a drug or a medical device. So when I say that, it's easy to understand why they are important. There are two main kinds of clinical trials that are done by the pharmaceutical industry. One is the observational trials, wherein you just observe a certain behavior or a pattern in a patient. The other one is an interventional trial, where the effect of a drug or a placebo treatment or a medical device is seen in treating a certain disease, a symptom, or a state of being. There is another kind of clinical trials which is not generally initiated by the pharmaceutical companies but by the investigator. So it's called an investigator initiated clinical trial. It's generally initiated by a scientist, a researcher, or a physician to understand the mechanisms of certain things happening. I have been a part of a few preclinical and clinical trials in diabetes and obesity, which had not much to do with any pharmaceutical drug, but really asking basic science questions of how the body works and what happens when you get diabetes. So that's a third kind of a trial. Clinical trials are generally done in 4 phases. Phase 1, 2, 3, 4. They enroll patients in progressive numbers. Generally, when a drug comes out in a market, before it has to come out in the market and the FDA approves it, it needs to be tested for safety and efficacy. So phase 1 of clinical trials is done in a handful of subjects, maybe 5 or 10. Most of them are healthy subjects. They do not have any diseases, but what the drug companies are looking for is the correct dose to give for a diseased patient, and also they're trying to look whether this drug has any major side effects and is it really safe to do it. So during phase 1 of a clinical trial, the patient is observed for maybe 24 hours to all the way up to 40 days. They are under constant observation. And these healthy subjects are really great because they volunteer to their time and energy for something really noble. From phase 2 onwards, there is increasing number of subjects. So in phase 2, you generally have about 200 to 500 subjects. Again, they're being tested for safety and efficacy. Once the drug goes through phase 2, it will go through phase 3, which is most of the times multi-center trials. They're done in different parts of US or the world simultaneously, and thousands of diseased subjects take part in the trial. Generally, these are randomized placebo-controlled trial, which means that the trial has 2 arms. One arm of the patients receive the drugs, the other of the patient receive a fake pill. Physicians are blinded to it. Everybody who is participating in the study is blinded to who gets what, so that there is an unbiased, impartial observation of the results. Once the drug passes phase 3 and the FDA approves it, that's when the drug enters phase 4 of a clinical trial, wherein it's an open market trial wherein the drug is marketed across the country, and data from the market is collected to really understand what's going on with the drug. So why would one want to participate in clinical trials? That's a big question, right? Why do I go and participate in a clinical trial? As a patient, talking from a patient's perspective, there are certain diseases for which there has been no cure. A lot of neurological diseases like Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, or like even diseases of the gut, right? Inflammatory bowel disease, ulcerative colitis, and Crohn's disease. There has been like no cure for these diseases, and of course physicians are treating the symptoms, but there is really no cure. So it's really important as a patient to volunteer in these different trials, especially if you're suffering from one of these diseases, because it would help contribute to the field of medicine, to the understanding of the disease. And maybe tomorrow your contribution can really help and save somebody else's life if the whole trial doesn't benefit you directly. So as a patient, it's really important to be a little bit courageous and have a little faith and participate in one of these trials so that we can understand diseases much better, we can understand human health much better, and we can all move towards a healthier future. As a physician, why would you want to participate in a clinical trial? Again, for a lot of diseases, there is not really a cure, a definite cure. Human beings are so varied. Every person responds to a medication or drug so differently. So participating in a trial gives you the opportunity to find new treatments for all kinds of patients. Some patients respond really well to certain kind of medications like biologics, some may not. So it gives you an edge over everybody else to contribute to research one, but to really find what treatment works better for your patient at the earliest possible step. And it's a big deal. So it's amazing if physicians and patients both come together and really participate in all these clinical trials to really advance science.